I did not finish off last week what I started. So I will start off with that. Anyhow, it ties in very nicely to, we did know we finished the point, but I didn't finish the beginning of the Devar Torah, which was the Choma, Chema thing, basically. What it actually meant, because the most important part of that Devar Torah was really in explaining the difference between the Choma and the Chema, right? The word Choma, they came into the Yam Suf, it's a wall on their right, it's a wall on their left when they first go in, and that's spelled Ches. Yes, please. Ches Vav Mem Hey, right? Choma, it's Male, right? The Vav, and the second time after they're in the Yam Suf, and the Egyptians are pursuing them, and the water is now beginning to, come back in. So then it mentions once again that it was a wall on the right and the left, but the Vav is missing. This time it's Chema, it's anger. We explained the Graz Vort, right? The fact that that Micha with his pestle was in the Yam Suf. Only Sheva Dan was there at this point in time, and therefore the angels were arguing that maybe it was good to drown them, because the rest of the Shvatim and their Schuyot were out of the Yam Suf.
They had no Schuyot, you said.
Right. Well,
they had one Schuyot.
I'm saying the 11 Shvatim who had the Schuyot, who were saving everybody, they were already out. Right? The one that Dan had Schuyot, but they also had a Chov, and that was the Passover, was the Avodah Zorah that Micha took with them. And then we went off to explain the whole background to the answer about the gift.
The Schuyot that they had, the 11 that they had, what was their Schuyot? Was the fact that they walked. There was B'tachon.
Right.
Only
right.
There was B'tachon.
Right. Well, that was the Schuyot for everybody who walked in, and that's really the point over here. Wow. So then, basically, we're trying to explain why it's not called being Samach and a Nes. Why walking to the Yam Suf up until their nostrils, waiting for the sea to split, was not called relying upon a miracle. These are very important questions. But we didn't exactly go the final step to put the cap on the whole discussion. We covered the most important points, but the difference was going to be why it was Chama Chema at the end as opposed to Choma with the Vav, is because Bitachon functions the capacity of Yesod, right? Which we explained. That's what makes the Mareches work. That's what makes the whole system work. It's the connecting piece. It's the switch in the wall that connects the light bulb with the electricity and the current, and everything flows and makes it happen. So Bitachon, we're saying, is what makes everything so natural. Because of that, when the Jewish people walked into the Yam Suf, and they had the Bitachon, so at that point in time, the miracle that happened for them, that they're actually saying Tehillim, right? On Hallel, he said on Rosh Chodesh and the Tovim, that the sea fled in the other direction. So traditionally we talk about the sea fleeing because it saw the run of Yosef, right? It saw the bones of Yosef and it went the other direction. But the truth is that's the most natural thing in the world for the world to happen. Not from our perspective, because we don't see it happen very often, but there it happened because that's what Bitachon does. And Kosh Baruch Hu, it made Bais Bereshis, thank you very much, that the Shefa, all the Brocha that comes into the world, basically is there for Klal Yisrael more than we can ever use, ever need. In fact, we saw this in last week's Parsha also, Parsha B'Shalach, when the Kosh Baruch Hu by Mara, when the water Rashi brings down there, the Kosh Baruch Hu says, I'm your healer. Which we'll touch on a bit as well, but he's basically saying, and Rashi explains, I think right there, that I'm prepared to give you what you need. I'm prepared to give you whatever you need. I'm prepared to do it for you. If you just do what you're supposed to do and walk in my ways and be obedient and live meaningful lives, then I will give you what you need. It's just there. And the lesson points out, just sitting there in Shemayim, just waiting to come down through the tubes. Whatever we're missing in this world, and obviously we're missing a lot. We feel like we're missing a lot of times, or at least we don't always do what we want. But it has to do with us, and not so much to do with Shemayim. It's there in Shemayim, but the point is that so because of that, when they walked into the Yam Suf the first time, and they went up to their nostrils, to the noses into the water, so that was full bitachon, and therefore it's full bitachon. It was like flicking the switch. So therefore the Shefa came down and split the sea. Everything was fine. As the Egyptians were pursuing them into the Yam Suf, and they looked back and they saw the water coming in, you can just imagine how would you feel in a situation like that, right? Where, let's say, you escape, the person's like running away from the Nazis, you march from the Germans or whatever, or any enemy, you turn the corner and they go the other way, right? And you feel, oh, what a miracle, Kosh Baruch Hu has saved me, right? And then all of a sudden you look back a little while longer, and you see them coming down the same path that you just went, right? So all of a sudden, what happens to your bitachon amuna, was saving up until now? You start to doubt, maybe it was wrong, maybe the situation is changing, so the water is caving in, right? How do you maintain the same level of bitachon as you had when you first walked in? When you first walked in and you walked up to your nostrils, okay, you went as far as you can go. It's not so dangerous. Now the water is split. You witnessed a fantastic miracle. So therefore, it's you have bitachon. But the moment you're inside the sea, and now if the water starts to cave in back once again, right, and it's drowning the Egyptians, it's going back to where it was before. How do you know? A, either you'll get out in time, or B, the water will stop short of you, right?
How do you know it wasn't a trap?
Yeah, that's exactly the point. How do you know it's not a trap? Maybe we were pulled into this thing because the Kodesh Baruch Hu planned to drown us. Because listen, we've known from day one. We don't have the proper merits for all these miracles. What happened to Mitzrayim happened to Mitzrayim. We can't argue in the past, but how do we know the miracle will continue until we're safe into the sun? Even if you don't lose all your bitachon, you just lose a little bit of bitachon. The moment you lost a little bit of bitachon, it's like losing part of the switch. So now it can't flow anymore, right? So that's the missing vav. The missing vav is indicating that once in the Yam Suf, they began to lose some of their bitachon. So now there's a big dilemma. Now there's a big problem. Why? Because up until now, Kosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe Rabbeinu, your tefillahs aren't going to work because there's no tefillah you can offer right now that will justify my doing such a fantastic miracle. The bitachon will split it. But now if the bitachon disappears, what's holding the water up? Right? What's holding the walls up now? Right? At this point in time, there's no foundation. What's holding the roof up? So there all of a sudden, Kosh Baruch Hu has a dilemma. Because now, if they don't have enough bitachon, so therefore they're being samach nanesh all over again. Because the bitachon was made it natural. The lack of bitachon now puts them in a situation where the water should come back in again, and if HaKadosh Baruch Hu allows it to go the natural course of action, it will drown everybody, and there'll be no one left to say, to go to Eretz Yisrael, which is breaking the promise made to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu either has to let them drown and break that promise, or save them and do a miracle. But you're being samach on a miracle. As the Gemara says, you really can't do that. That's the chema. That's the chema. You put me in a position where I have to now perform a miracle to save you guys because you've lost your bitachon, and which means turning the world upside down and changing the system, the situation, and make up for what you're missing. That's the chema. That's the choma. That's the chema in the Yam Suf. Because the moment that you took the vav out of the picture, what's left over basically is just the situation, and no bitachon holding the walls up, which means it's now going to be a miracle. And either it comes off your merit later on, or it might not happen for you. But in this situation, Kosh Baruch Hu had to do it because of the promise made to the Avos. That's the difference over here. So that's a very important key point. That's a very important idea in terms of understanding what bitachon is all about. The first, why the Medrash can make a statement like "Ein davar omed b'fnei bitachon." People will tell you it's not true. I had bitachon and I still failed. Right? I tried to have bitachon and it still didn't work out. No, you understand. If you really had bitachon, you really understood what it meant to have bitachon. That bitachon doesn't mean that I'm scared. I don't know if it's going to happen for sure, but I'm willing to take a risk and see if it's going to happen. I'm willing to put myself in the line. Now, that's not bitachon. That's called, trying to have bitachon, and it's called being Moser Nefesh. That's for sure, and all these different things, but it's not called bitachon in the full sense of the term. Because basically, you are doubting. A bal bitachon is a chenid ben dosa. Right? A bal bitachon is a Pinchas who goes ahead and does the mice of knowing he can be killed along the way. A bal bitachon is Moshe Rabbeinu and the Avos and all these different people, or walking into Ur Kasdim. That's a bal bitachon. Doesn't necessarily mean you believe that the results will be always favorable, but it does mean that you know that the situation always is going to end up becoming good. You're not worried about how things are going to unfold. So in that capacity, and that's Yosef, of course, right? So in that capacity, so then you can complete the circuit, the system, the mareches, and everything will flow from there. And therefore, that's why nothing can stand in the way of bitachon. But it's obviously a very high madriga to get to. Yeah.
Question. I just have a sure. There were the midrash 12 shvilim, one for each of the tribes, right? Mm-hmm. What happened to the Arab? Where were they? Where were they?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think they took the bus.
Okay.
What do you mean? What's your question?
Probably they tagged along. No, I also wondered about that situation.
Maybe you shouldn't ask a kash on a mice.
Yeah, no, it's like a chassidus, it's like no, I assume that they tagged along and they just went, I guess, wherever they went. I don't know. Interesting question. I don't have an answer for that.
They must have been riding on the spokes of the
Yeah, but you know,
How did they get through?
How did they get through?
They said the midrash is 12 shvilim. There were 12 paths.
12, one for each tribe at their own path.
And the same number of yin that went out of Mitzrayim was the same number. It was 3 million, 3 million.
Yeah.
So how did they get to the
Yeah,
other
it's
side?
an interesting thing. It's like the 4/5 thing all over again. It's like a big thing that's like dealt like that's a small thing.
Right.
And I don't know. I just assumed that. I mean, they tagged along somehow, some way. You know, took the ferry.
So they're getting through on the 12
They're getting
tribes.
yeah.
Unless the Kadosh Baruch Hu just brought them over, like they just lifted them up like on the Anan.
That would be cheating.
And, brought them up from the Anan and took them to the other side.
I think they just followed behind and they just like scrambled and fell behind.
Yeah, but once they're in the water, once the Jews are in the water, and they had bitachon at that point, now you turn around and you see the Egyptians coming, even if they had lost their bitachon, which most of us probably would have.
I certainly would have.
Yeah, I mean, a little late for Hashem now to, as you said, he either has to crash the water down because there's no roof anymore, but then he breaks the promise to the others. So once you're in midair, if you jump out the window and you're midair.
So let me tell you how you look at these things. Okay, in Kabbalah there's a concept called ki'ilu. Also, I mean, in halacha shkaf, it's also what's ki'ilu. Ki'ilu means it's not exactly the reality it seems to be, but it's dealt with as if is that reality to teach whatever lesson it has to teach. So Lamaisa, Kosh Baruch Hu understood exactly where Klal Yisrael was holding the situation, how it must have looked to them. They were newly out of Mitzrayim. How could they possibly have the kind of bitachon expected from them? But and they didn't drown in the end. Kosh Baruch Hu did save them, and it didn't come off their schuyot. But in order to teach us down the road, who have developed as a nation, that we look at it as if that was the way the situation actually unfolded. That was the ideal way of looking at the situation. Lamaisa, in terms of how Hashem actually looked at it, Mistama, there was no anger per se, there was no, threat of, I mean, the Medrash does say that Kosh Baruch Hu certainly, fought to drown them. There's no question about that. It was part of the Cheshbon for sure. But Kosh Baruch Hu was not going to let anybody drown at the Yam Suf. That would have destroyed them. Just like, for example, by Nadav Avihu. It really chayiv misa by Har Sinai. They looked at the Shekhinah there. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu was not going to let it happen there. That's not the place that's going to do the din at this point in time. There's a message there. We need to know about it. We need to know what happened, what they were chayiv, but it's not the place that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to carry it out. Likewise, we need to know what happened by Yam Suf. We need to know and understand the strength of bitachon and the failures of bitachon and how to rectify the situation. So therefore, enough is there to portray it in a way that we can understand it in Choma, Chima, the whole thing. That's why the Vav is missing. To miramis, to this particular very important lesson for all the generations to come. Lamaisa, how Kosh Baruch Hu dealt with it, he had rachmanis. He had mercy on them, even though they lost their bitachon. It was understandable. For all we know, Kosh Baruch Hu Dafka did it that way, to show them how easy it is to lose your bitachon, and which is really the point of the next part of the shir. Really, how do you get that bitachon, and how do you maintain it? How do you actually able to achieve it? So, and what does it mean? Because Baruch Hu says that I will not place upon, if you walk in my ways, and you do my Torah, my mitzvahs, how I will not put the illnesses, the diseases, the plagues I put on the Mitzrayim, I will not do to you, ani rofe'echem, I am your healer, Kosh Baruch Hu says. What does it do with anything over here? What is, I know, it's like, okay, so you're our doctor. Talk about that other places where health is an issue. We're not talking about health right now. We're talking about Torah, mitzvahs, and water, and drinking and food, things like that. Say, if you will walk in my ways, I will give you food to eat. I will give you water to drink. I will take care of your basic needs. Give you clothing, all these things. But what do you mean? I will heal. I'm your healer. What does healing come into the picture over here by Mara, and right after Yam Suf, and to do with the mana and all these different things, and to do with Tu B'Shvat as well at the same time for that. America's tonight, of course, is Tu B'Shvat, right? And it's all tied together, right? Tu B'Shvat is more than simply Chag L'Ilanot and the Rosh Hashanah of the Ilan. As the Pritzaddik points out, it should say, other places it uses the plural, I should say Rosh Hashanah L'Ilanot, just like we sing, right? Why is it Rosh Hashanah L'Ilan? Because he says it's talking about a specific tree, the tree being the Eitadas Tova Ra. Tu B'Shvat is a Rosh Hashanah of the Eitadas Tova Ra. Where does that fit into the whole picture? And how does it all tie together? So this is part of a larger discussion, which is actually part 2 of my next book coming up, in the last exile called Holy Sparks. Just
You
a
saw
little
that you're
plug
giving
in.
discounts
On the dedications.
on the dedications.
Yeah, well, actually, it worked in my favor, but yeah, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. This is going, they start things on sale too.
That's right. Maybe Steve and I.
It's not really a discount. You should get half of it. Anyhow, the point is, right, that we take for granted. This is very ikavi. This is very, it's like you peel off all the layers of all the parshiot, right, and all the different discussions and all the gemaras and all the halachas, all the midrashim, and all even the Kabbalah. You get down to the most basic fundamental ideas that, interesting enough, are extremely elusive, and people aren't even aware of them. For example, right, the body and the soul we take for granted. You have a body, you got a body. You got a soul, you got a soul, right? How do they work together? What's the problem? There's a soul inside the body, and that's the way God made it. He puts the soul inside, and we function, no problem, right? So first of all, usually in the world, in creation, anytime you put something more spiritual into something less spiritual, it usually destroys the less spiritual thing. Now, there's a soul is much more high powered, spiritually speaking, than the body. So therefore, by putting the soul into the body should get burned up. It should be destroyed.
It does.
You look very good for someone who's been burned up.
Well, it takes time.
Yeah.
Not everything happens instantly.
Yeah, no. Eventually, what happens? In fact, it's the other way around. The very fact that the soul is taken away from the body, that causes decay. As long as the soul is with the body, then the body is able to not only survive but even thrive. In fact, the more of the soul the body gets, the closer the soul becomes to the body, then the healthier the body is going to be. The body benefits only by the soul coming closer and closer and closer. So Kabbalah explains it. Really, it's true. The body. So we know it's like the analogy I use is like two guys who are chained at the ankle. Let's say they break out of jail, right? They're chained at the ankle, and one guy, he's a classier guy, and one guy's type of guy who belongs in jail for the most part. And they break out. They're able to go free. They get to the open, in one place to the city of where people should not go necessarily. And one guy wants to go back home to his wife and family because he was wrongly thrown in jail, right? So they make up their mind to go their separate ways. They go in different directions. And also, it turns out that they're linked to the feet, linked to the legs. They fall down because this guy wants to go that way. This guy wants to go that way, and he's not going to go that way. He's not going to go that way. They're just being pulled in different directions. It doesn't work. The soul wants to go back to Shemayim the entire time. Doesn't want to be down here. They want to come in the first place. Some say the story of Yonah is really the story of the neshama coming into a goof, and it doesn't want to come. It's forced into the goof because that's what it has to do for tikkun, and to earn its schar to come. But it doesn't want to be in the physical body. The body is very limiting. It wants to go back to Shemayim. Likewise, the body is uninterested, in spiritual matters. That's for sure. That's quite evident. Right? The body wants to go back. From dust you came, to dust you will go back. Exactly. It's exactly what the body wants to do. Go back to the dust. That's where it came from. It doesn't want to be here. So soul and the body are like being pulled, or are pulling themselves in two different directions, which is why the personality is always in flux. Your personality is never really the same on a momentary basis. It's always like adjusting and changing because the more soul, that is in that you'll be more spiritual. The more body takes over, the more material you'll be, and that will depend upon also environment, wherever you are, situations and mood and things like that. It's all part of the same picture, but they're looking to go in different directions. So what keeps them together? Obviously a miracle. So it is a miracle for sure, but Kabbalah has a different term for it. It's a little bit complicated, and I'm definitely oversimplifying matters, but everybody for the most part has heard of the Tzotzi Kedusha, right? Holy sparks. What are holy sparks? That is a story unto itself, but they're the life force of creation. The whole point of when Hashem made Maaseh Bereshis, he made it from what's called Shivrei Kelim and Tzotzi Kedusha, broken pieces, which have to do from the spheres from before creation, and holy sparks. We're not going to go into the pre-creation story at this point in time. It is the basis of a lot of Kabbalah. All we're concerned with is like, the same way, for example, you buy a car. You could ask the guy, well, where'd the metal come from, right, to make the chassis, right, and the engine, right, and where did the rubber come from? And you can research the whole car back to its original roots, to some tree, someplace in, some forest somewhere. In Brazil, right? Or the coffee. You don't, every time you sit down for a cup of coffee at some cafe, you don't say, where did all this coffee come from, and who grew it, and what was the watering like? It's like, it's there, right? It might be important to know these things like that, and maybe connoisseurs do exactly that. But for the most part, all you're concerned about is the fact that the coffee is here, it's drinkable, you're enjoying it, and that's and how much does it cost in the end? So the same thing is true of the car. Likewise, the same thing is true of Ma'aser Bereshis. We could go into the whole origins of Nitzotzi Kedusha and the broken pieces with which HaKadosh Baruch Hu made Ma'aser Bereshis. That would consume at least an hour or two, just to go in the background. What concerns us right now is the fact that it's all there. It's available. We're using it. And that's all that counts, because that's the Metzias, that's the reality. So, according to Kabbalah, basically, that the soul and the body have to be kept together by a special spiritual glue called, actually, tselem. It's actually called tselem. But it's made up of the Tzotzi Kedusha, holy sparks. These holy sparks keep the body and soul together. Right? The more, it's like a magnetic force that it somehow attracts, or at least pulls them together. And of course, the net effect is going to be that the more the body is able to be mushpa, affected by the soul, the more life force the body is going to receive, and therefore it's going to show up in terms of health, right? Aging is just sickness. Sickness is the result of the soul moving away from the body. Aging is on a permanent basis. The soul's, because in preparation for going to the next stage of history, right? The soul's moving on and going to leave the body behind. So Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't do it all at one time. It used to be all at one time. That's why you say bless you after you sneeze, because it used to be all at one time. A person would never age, wouldn't look old, nothing. He'd live his life. When Kadosh Baruch Hu decided it was time for this person to die, they would sneeze, and the soul would go out through the nose just like it came into the nose. And he said, bless you, because it was a way of saying, oh, lucky you didn't die this time you sneezed. Thank God, because I've been sneezing nonstop the last 3 days. I would be here at this point to give a shir. That's the way we died right now, through sneezing. Although it almost killed me a few times, but not usually for the same reason. It's amazing how a sneezing attack. But that's the way it used to be in the old days. But
before the flood.
Before the flood. Going back to way, yeah.
But it's amazing that we still have that bitui after Noah and the whole business.
Yeah. I really wonder if today, bless you. I really wonder.
That's where it originated?
That's where the Gemara says originated from. But I wonder if it's really if it was originally there and didn't go on, and somebody is made up later on to be polite, or was the same between the entire time through. I don't know. What Yaakov asked that people should get sick, and therefore die. I think die from their illness, or no, just get sick.
At least get a warning to get all your affairs together.
Right. I'm not sure that was Yaakov or somebody else after it.
Hiskiyahu was the first one that was.
He was healed from it.
Exactly.
He healed from it. He healed from it. Yeah. Whatever. The point is that the body is only alive today because of the soul that's attached to it, and it's only attached because of Nitzotzi Kedusha. However, is that Nitzotzi Kedusha is not a one-time thing. You're obviously born. The fact that a person is born alive means that there's already Nitzotzi Kedusha there, but you have to constantly replenish them on an ongoing basis. If you don't replenish them, what happens to the person who doesn't eat? The person dies. So what does the person die? He dies of starvation. Not from a lack of food, right? What's the proof that a lack of food doesn't have to kill you? Who comes down and says, for 40 days and for 40 nights, I was on Har Sinai, I didn't order in, didn't take out, right? No, I didn't have food, didn't pack a lunch with me, basically. I didn't have to eat or drink, and look at me. I'm perfectly in good shape. I think he repeats himself 2 or 3 times. At one point I thought to myself, why is he doing that? We already heard that already. Why is it to say, is he like bragging to tell us what great shit? No, look how little I ate and I still, no, because he was making the point. Wake up, guys, hear the message. For 40 days and in case you were wondering, what I had when I up there to eat, the Kadosh Baruch Hu deliver, food from Shemayim, like this for Rishon. So it says in Parshas Eikev, Kadosh Baruch Hu says, not by bread alone does man survive, but what comes out of Hashem's mouth. So what comes out of Hashem's mouth? Nitzotzi Kedusha, holy sparks. So what's the food that we're eating? So the food we're eating is very much like medicine, right? The medicine itself that you take in the form of a pill is very small inside the pill itself, but you just can't put it into your mouth because sometimes it goes into your blood, absorbed by your intestines. There's different ways the medicine has to be delivered to your body to be effective. So sometimes you have to be able to swallow it and not let it dissolve until it hits your stomach, whatever the case may be. So part of developing any new medicine is developing a carrier for the medicine that allows the medicine to get to the part of the body. It has to get, it could be like a time capsule type of a thing. And it's not always so simple to come up with something that will carry the medicine. I always thought it was the pill itself. The pill is just a carrier for the medicine inside. That's the way it works. Likewise, food is not what keeps you alive. What keeps you alive is an Netzotze Kiddush inside the food. Before the Chet of Adam Arishon, you got it directly from the mouth of Hashem. You didn't have to physically eat to survive. Because Netzotze Kiddush are everywhere. They're in everything. But as a result of eating from the Eitz Das Tov Ra, so therefore, there was Hester Panim. Part of the Hester Panim of Kosh Baruch Hu hiding himself is bearing the Netzotze Kiddush inside the food. And that's why, for example, that food will not make a dead person come back to life again. But the Netzotze Kiddush are inside. So what's missing? The fact that there's no Neshama anymore. The Neshama inside has been taken back by Kosh Baruch Hu, as the Gemara says, that when three are involved in making a person. The man provides the white substance, the woman provides what's called the red substance, and the Kosh Baruch Hu provides the personage, the neshama, basically. When a person dies, the man doesn't take back his part, and the woman doesn't take back her part, but the Kosh Baruch Hu takes back his part, which is the neshama. There's no neshama, so the Netzotze Kedusha can't do anything anymore. There's nothing to glue together. Can't pull the neshama back down from where it is right now, back into the goof. Once it leaves the goof, there's no connection to feed anymore. So, the whole point of eating is because of the Netzotze Kedusha inside the food. Now, obviously, what's healthy food, right? Healthy food has to do with the fact that, nutrients. Well, not exactly. What are nutrients? Right? Nutrients are basically things that we came up with because we saw that certain foods that we eat are good for us. We tend to get better because of them, have certain healing effects, and certain foods that we eat, have damaging effects. So that's just another way of talking about Netzotze Kedusha. The nutritional facts inside of a box, which talks about nutrients, really ought to say how many sparks can be found inside this product. True that you can't really count them because they're spiritual, but the reason that one food is healthier than the other is because of the amount of Netzotze Kedusha that has inside of it. Because the more Netzotze Kedusha, the more holy sparks inside a specific food, the more it will glue the body and soul together, and therefore the healthier the person is going to become.
Are we saying before the Chet of that?
After. No, now. I'm talking now.
Before, he didn't have to eat?
Mm-hmm. It was made from light. It was made from light. What's it going to eat?
Yeah.
What's it going to eat? Light. Right?
He ate photons.
Photons, yeah. Even those would be too heavy for him.
Yeah.
in digestion, probably.
So what was all the fruit, the tree,
Everything.
everything's waiting for what? For him to sin?
In the Garden of Eden?
Yeah.
No. It was all on a spiritual plane. The lesson is very specific. The world was transformed because of man. Everything was made from light. The Garden of Eden was a sound and light show. It was all ruchani. The result of Adam transforming himself by eating from the Eitz Das Tov Ra caused the entire world to become transformed and become more physical as a result of that. So where there used to be the fruit itself would just be light itself, so now that light became encased in physicality. So now food, yeah, exactly. So now to get to that Netzotze Kedusha, you have to go out and actually get the food, prepare the food, and eat it and digest it and consume it. What's really going on inside the body is the same way the body is breaking down the food physically and saying this part goes over there, this part goes over there, this is good for the heart, this is good for the brain. So likewise, all those things that are good for the brain is because they have certain sorts of kedusha that are good for the brain, spiritually speaking, and this is good for the heart because it's all spiritual. So we think in physical terms, but the reality is it's all ruchani, it's all spiritual, all sorts of kedusha. So food and anything for that matter consumes Netzotze Kedusha. It's all based. We can talk about all malacha. Any work you're doing is for the sake of releasing holy sparks.
Is this a score for being a vegetarian?
Sorry?
Is this a score for being a vegetarian?
Not at all. Especially since the chet. No, because meat has a lot of Netzotze Kedusha. Sure, 100%.
It's heavy.
No, that doesn't. It's proper. There's the shechita itself is very important in terms of tikkun.
I was thinking that if we wanted to be like Adam Rishon, who was weightless, right?
Right.
The lighter, the less we ate.
Well, he ate meat.
Adam Rishon.
Yeah, but the Gemara says he ate meat that was brought to him from Shemayim. He had the ultimate takeout service. Angels brought it down to him. So obviously,
what does that mean?
He ate everything in the physical world is just a physical projection of a spiritual idea.
Mm-hmm.
So, just like tefillin, for example, there weren't always black leather boxes. They became that since Mount Sinai because that was the best way for us, as physical beings post Sinai, to connect to the concept behind tefillin. But tefillin is a concept. It's an idea. It's a way of connecting to Kodesh Baruch Hu, just like every mitzvah. So, we mentioned before in the past that when Yaakov put the stick in the ground to multiply the sheep, he was actually being motzi the mitzvah of tefillin. Now, there's nothing about this stick, and this loose wood and all that, and making the sheep that has anything to do with tefillin as far as we're concerned. But there's a concept behind tefillin that has to do with, rectifying my separations. And likewise, in doing the sheep, he was actually accessing that idea to accomplish his purpose. It's a much higher level of living and looking at the mitzvahs and the concepts in this world. That's for sure. But that's the basic idea behind it all. Anyhow, the point is these sparks. These point, right? Now, food obviously has limitations to how much you can get, how many sparks you get from food. Because, first of all, your physical body is limited. It wasn't that way for Moshe Rabbeinu. It wasn't that way for Adam Rishon. Obviously, if you're eating light, eating light, you can have as much as you want. It's not going to fill you up. It's not going to, you're not going to become obese because of it, basically.
That's why we had no waste in the midbar. It's like we're eating light.
Oh, because that's what the man was. That's definitely why we ate the man in the end. We'll see that's a connection to back to the fruits as well. But that's exactly what the man was. What made the man something that did not have any waste product was because it wasn't food. That's why manhu. That's why they couldn't understand what it was. What is this thing? It's not food. How can we possibly survive from a thing like this? It doesn't taste like this and this, whatever you want to taste like, because ultimately speaking, it's all in the mind. It was
going directly to our neshama.
Exactly. It was feeding every part of every aspect of it was kaddish, was holy. Wasn't that Kodesh Baruch Hu says, well, here there's a malach taking all the waste of the body, it was completely kaddish, the entire thing. Because, as the priest points out,
that's why they complain it tasted good.
Yeah, because because we were stuck in the physical world. We chose to have the food, the vehicle of the food itself, right? We just couldn't break out that mentality, and of course there's a tremendous limitation when you do that, because the moment you do that, for example, there's a waste product, which is just symbolic of the fact that you're living in a world that is very imperfect, and therefore very limited in what you can accomplish. I mean, if you think about how much time a person spends, not just in eating, but preparing the food, we're used to it because that's part of life. You have to do it. But how much time, and not just that, but also in terms of personal hygiene because of the food that we eat and things, and all these things that go along. How much of your life? There's a Gemara like this. A Gemara, in Shabbos on Pei Testament Beis, where Kodesh Baruch Hu wants to destroy the Jewish people, and he comes to Avram Avinu, who says, "Yeah, you're right. They've done a chet. They should be destroyed. They shouldn't exist." So Kodesh Baruch Hu says, "That's disappointing. Let's go. Let's try Yaakov. He's a younger guy. He'll figure out. He'll connect to what happened." He says, "No, you're right. They did a chet. They should be destroyed." So he goes to Yitzchak, and Yitzchak says, "What? You're going to call them my son? You called them your son in the midbar, right?" And he goes on to say, "Anyhow, how long did they live in it? How many sins can they possibly do? Half their life they spend, 23 years they spend in the bathroom, and this way is eating, sleeping. By the time you think the whole cheshbon, how much life they're actually living, is like 25 years left that they might possibly be responsible for their sins." So Yitzchak says we can either split that, because I did the Akedah, we can either split that, and therefore they're not worthy of being destroyed anymore, or having done the Akedah, I should be able to take all their burden on my shoulders and save them from destruction. It's like that's the problem of living in this world. There's so much waste of time. We have no idea what we could be accomplishing and how much we could use our time better to become closer to Hashem. When we realize what the world to come is really about, and how much more of it we could have gotten by learning more, by being more Moser Nefesh, by doing the mitzvahs better, we see what it's going to be about. We're going to look back and say, all the seconds and the minutes and the hours I wasted. I mean, Bittel's man is huge because of the chet of the Eitzadas Tavara. Because we have to work through intermediaries. We have to go to banks. We have to go to banks. To survive, we have to go to banks. We have to be involved with money. How much time and energy has been lost dealing with money to survive? And telephones and tracking down people, and just taking all the things that you need, to go buy clothing. So, spend time, our society is so developed in the direction we don't think twice about it because it's a necessary evil in this world, but it wasn't there in the Garden of Eden. There were no visa bills to pay, right? There were no stores to deal with, no banks to deal with. You just simply built upon level, come closer to Kodesh Baruch Hu, become more like Him, and get more instant gratification of becoming perfect on the spot. We don't appreciate this because it's not part of our existence, it's not part of our experience. But if you think about it, you can work it out retroactively and see it and say, yeah, it's amazing how much we have to do, and wasted time and wasted life, all because we have to work through the physical world, the physical realm. So yeah.
Question, just on the line of your thinking here, if in Gan Eden, was it an objective of both Adam and Chava? In other words, the desire to be like HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? The desire to be like HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that you can look at it from both sides. It could have been a taiva, and it could also have been a resolution. In other words, but
to be like Hashem?
To be like Hashem. No, yeah, to be like Hashem. In other words, so when...
Oh, you mean in the beginning when they ate things of Torah?
Exactly. Yeah, so because think about it, that's our objective. We want to be like Hashem.
100%.
100%. That's our objective. Okay. So when now the Nachash comes to Chava and says, "Listen, I got a deal for you. I can get you there quicker."
Oh, well, that's exactly the point. That's Avodah Zorah.
So there's but wait a second. The fact is that when we make the rationalization and say, listen, I really want to get to be like Hashem, if I can find a way that's going to be more expeditious, then why not use it? Okay? Now, this seemed to be, this is what I'm trying to
Which would have been fine, by the way, except for the fact that Kodesh Baruch Hu gave an explicit command, don't eat for the eight Tzadas Tov Ra. Right. Once you have that explicit command, so now there's no expeditiousness, so to speak, in the situation. The only shortcut is going to be the straight path, because there's no workaround here. It's very, very black and white. I mean, some do read into that command that it wasn't absolute, but trying to explain and understand exactly the point you're raising. But we see in the end that it was a mistake. For all the right reasons, for all the right kavanas, it does make a difference. If Kodesh Baruch Hu gave a command, He laid out the path, that's the way you have to go. Not the Levi, who is exactly the same thing. They're after the exact same thing, doing the exact same way, but Kodesh Baruch Hu said, look, folks, I gave you a misgarret. I gave you a path, right? Now that's the path you have to follow. If you don't follow the path, the whole thing falls apart in the end. Because you're not capable of maintaining, a freestyling this, because it will end up becoming more destructive than anything positive is going to happen in the end, and they have to die as a result of that. Let's just get to this point because I don't have time to make the point. But it's a very, very, very important point. The point is basically like this: that's really what we're doing. That's what life is about. I mean, aside from the fact that the reason we're doing it in the first place because history is about using up holy sparks. There's a finite amount of holy sparks that have to be rectified. Again, going back to the whole Ma'aser Bereishis business and what happened before Ma'aser Bereishis and what our purpose is here, but putting the purpose aside for the time being in terms of using up the Tzatzi Kedusha, that's the basis of health. That's the basis of life. These holy sparks holding the soul and the body together, making them one. Food is a vehicle for being able to achieve that, but because it is now physical, not the sparks themselves, but the food itself, because the carrier, the intermediary, is now physical, there's now a limitation by how many sparks you can get directly from the food. Because the physical body has to deal with the physical food, with the carrier. So therefore, you need something else. So in the Garden of Eden, did Adam Rishon have a Torah? Right? Did he have a Torah? Well, yes and no. Right? Shamra v'Yavda are two mitzvahs. In the mitzvah Shamra, according to Chazal, incorporate all the negative mitzvahs we're ever going to have.
What did you say?
Shamra, to guard the garden. Right?
Shemor.
Yeah. To guard the garden, incorporate all the negative mitzvahs that are ever going to exist. Avda, which is positive, to work the garden, right? So that incorporate all the positive mitzvahs. Did he have to receive a Torah to do that? No. Because he was so hooked into the reality, because don't forget, Torah is the blueprint for Ma'aser Bereishis. So if you're one with Ma'aser Bereishis, you're one with Torah too. It's just an automatic part of who you are. You're a walking Torah. You're a walking Torah in a Torah reality. There's no need to separate in a separate Torah. Once the world becomes mechulak, becomes divided, because the physical world is a function of perud. Perud basically means separation of things. So now, as a result of that, because in the beginning, Adam Rishon was one person. All of us would have been part of him. You would have been who you are as part of this collective entity called Adam Rishon. Because of the Chet, we all fell off into klipos and became individual people. There was a perud. My separation was a function of perud itself, but there's a real perud, a separation of things. So once it's a separation of things, you have to have laws and rules and regulations because everything is now separate. So even the Torah itself became separated from the rest. It had to be peeled off the reality. It was extracted, so to speak. All the it's like working backwards. It's like walking to an apartment like this and devising the blueprint based upon what you see. Without even knowing how the place was built. Normally we start with the blueprint and we build the building, right? In this case, you walk into the building already complete and you extract the blueprint from what you see. So because Baruch Hu extracted the blueprint of Torah out of creation, it's always there, it's always beyond creation, but we can no longer connect to creation. And that's why we throw garbage in the ground. That's why we destroy the environment.
You missed me. I'm not quite following you.
Now, explain 1 second. We're not connected, right? That's why we need shkia. That's why we have mincha before shkia. And we have all these halachic things that tie us back to the reality to make us one with Ma'aseh Bereshis. Because Ma'aseh Bereshis is the Torah. The Torah was the blueprint for Ma'aseh Bereshis, so therefore Ma'aseh Bereshis is the expression of the Torah. They're one and the same thing. So Adam, when he was made from light, the world was made from light, like two candles. Like when the fire comes together, separates, comes together, right? It can become unified fire, not physical bodies. They can't do that. They're like, can't do it, right? Adam and Chava cannot become one flesh except through a child after the Chet. But before the Chet they could because they're made from light. That's the power of light. So Adam didn't have to have a physical Torah per se because he was walking and living and breathing it as part of the totality of Ma'aseh Bereshis. You follow? It was just built in. Once he became physical and we got this Kesonos Or, this physical skin, right? So now everything is separate. I can't become one with the table anymore. I don't even feel that wall. I mean, I don't even, unless I walk into it. I don't even know what that wall's up. I can't walk through walls at this point in time. That's a what? There's a door, open space. The whole world is paired. It's all separated. So now the Torah itself, I cannot learn the Torah out from that wall or that painting or from you. But I could once. In the Garden of Eden, I could look at you and extract, which is basically what Abraham did on some level too, for that matter.
Yaakov, no?
Well, they didn't have to because Abraham did it, but they just furthered the cause. But Abraham but even then he didn't, he didn't get the full picture, but he went very far. It was very unusual what he was able to accomplish as a physical human being post-Chet. But he couldn't become one with it to the same degree that Adam could. That's for sure. Because it's just physical limitation. We do to some degree. The same, for example, a husband and wife who get married and they have a happy marriage that works for a long, long time, there's a certain unification takes place on some level, the point you start to feel each other. Even they even say that even the physical looks can start to change it, but you can begin to look at a little like each other. I don't know how true that is, how absolute that is, basically. But I thought my wife would be very happy finding that out. She looks like me.
On a subatomic level, isn't this what happens per se? Like in concepts like string theory and stuff like this.
I'm not sure. I don't know enough about that. But the basic idea here is that this is what is the world of perud. So the nafkamina, the main practical difference is now if you want your sparks, you have to go and get them through the physical world. The physical world is imbued with them, right? If you could have seen the Garden of Eden before the Chet, all you would have seen was sparks. The whole thing would have shimmered like light because it was totally sparks for the taking, for the experiencing, and for the perfection of Ma'aseh Bereshis. Once it's like froze over, so to speak. It's like water that froze over, became encased in the physical world. Everything became encased in the physical world. So now you're forced to work through physical means, including getting your sparks to the food itself. So
it's like taking the nectar. Then
you're extracting it.
All you're taking is the nectar.
Yeah, I mean,
you need the nectar to survive.
Comparatively speaking,
on a spiritual level.
Exactly.
And then
So the question then becomes, if that's the case, if I can't get all the sparks I need to get for the food, so what do? Where do I get them from the end? So you can get them from different aspects of life, but primarily this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says in PARSHA B'Shalach. If you will walk in my ways, and you'll do my Torah, keep my mitzvahs, then I will give what you need, ani rafe'echa. I will not give you the diseases of Mitzrayim. I am your healer. What does it mean, I am your healer? The most effective way to get the Tzotze Kedusha is directly from the Torah itself. The Torah itself, as much as it's physical, and you have black letters on the cloth, Chazal point out that those black letters are really, you can't really see it because your eyes they're physical, they're not trained to see it. You can't see this reality. But if you could see the reality, you'd see light coming down from Shemayim, coming through the letters at everybody who's looking at them and partaking of them. In fact, that's one of the reasons why we actually, on the Baal Korah, it's really an amazing thing. That, again, we don't think about we don't question these things. We're so makpid. We're very strict about reading the Torah on Shabbos, the Tzibur, without making a mistake. Even the trap, even a niggin for it, right? Well, if you're so serious about not making a mistake, put the vowels in. Put vowels in. Everywhere else we want, the proper dikduk, the proper pronunciation, we put vowels and lines and all kinds of things that hint to what you got to do. In the Western world, in the medical book, we don't say, you have to become a good doctor. So therefore, we're going to only provide you with part of the information, because if you're a really good doctor, you'll find the information out for yourself through what we do provide. What kind of risk are we taking over here? Forget it. We want you to become a good doctor. We provide all the information as much as possible to get you going the right track. This is Hashem's word. It's the most holy, most powerful thing available to men, and you leave it at the vowels? So someone can make a mistake, and the notes too? They can make a mistake in this thing? So Chazal explained, because the actual process of the human being pronouncing the vowels, putting them in there through his pronunciation, plus the trup as well, the tugging and the trup that he puts into it, right? And he actually draws the light down and completes the Torah by doing that. Everything about Korah reads from the Sefer Torah, he's actually bringing shlemus to the Torah experience, the Torah itself, by providing these things. Not that Kadosh Baruch Hu is saying, let's go see how good you can do this thing. No, I'm going to allow you to participate in the shlemus of Torah, but through that, you will be absorbing that Tzotze Kedusha. And that's why you find people, they don't always necessarily know what they're doing, but by Hagbah, a lot of people, they're very makpid, not just the point of the Torah, whatever finger they use, and they don't use a finger and say, is this a Torah? B'nai Israel. It's more, they stand there, they look at those letters until the Sefer Torah is closed up. They make a point of going right by the Sefer Torah to see it as clearly as they possibly can until they can't see those letters anymore. Because every single second you're exposed to those letters, the light's coming at you. And through mitzvahs. Mitzvahs are conduits for the light to come through, to you. So that's what Kadosh Baruch Hu is saying. That's why it's tied to I am your healer in the end. Because if you will do the Torah and you'll do the mitzvahs, you'll get a Tzotze Kedusha. Memelo, automatically, that's going to heal you. As the Gemara says, in Talmud, I think it is, Talmud knows Tamur, right? If you have a sore throat, learn some Torah. You got a headache, learn some Torah, right? Got a bad heart, learn some Torah. It goes to the whole body, all the bodily symptoms of a person that has certain illnesses, learn Torah. Okay, lots of people have done exactly that, but did they actually walk away healed? The answer is, it certainly could work that way, but the Gemara is telling you that illness is a function of the separation of the body and the soul, and Torah is the thing that pulls it back together, because that's the most amount of Tzotze Kedusha you can possibly get. That's how you get it. And that's the message Kadosh Baruch Hu keeps trying to give to the Jewish people over and over and over again. Don't be fooled by the physical world. Don't be taken in by the middlemen, the intermediaries. Go directly to me. Come to me and I'll give you Tzotze Kedusha and you will survive L'Olam Tava. You know why people survive the Holocaust in conditions that nobody else could have survived? I mean, you just look at me. You just see how much you have to eat on a daily basis to remain healthy. And how much warmth in the in your environment, the proper clothing to remain healthy. And these people had nothing, no clothing. They worked in freezing cold snow with almost no nutrients, no food. People should have died after a month, 2 months. How could they survive for years? Physically, there's no way. It's a big question of the Holocaust. There's no explanation in the physical world. The only explanation could be they were getting their nutrients from someplace else, but not from the physical world, because it just physically wasn't there. So where are they getting it from? Because Baruch Hu made sure they stayed alive. Not too much. That would have been too obvious. But not to be able to say, like, that's Klal Yisrael all about.
Oh, they must have been very highly spiritual people.
Well, they were after what they went through, the Mesiras Nefesh they didn't put up with in the situation, and the tikkun, and all these things combined together. Whatever the reason is, Baruch Hu is providing the tzotzik kedusha. So that brings us to this week's parsha. Yitro is the whole meaning of the Seres Dibros, but one of the most important parts of the entire Torah. The important parts, it comes just in advance, as Rashi points out, right? The Jewish people came Refidim. Refidim is an allusion back to Amalek. Amalek is the antithesis of all this, right? He's physical world, intermediaries. You can only survive the physical realm. Hitler, Yamach Shemo, the Germans, Nazis, they pushed and they pushed and they pushed to try to make the point to Jewish people, it's the physical power that controls this world, not the spiritual power. Of course, they didn't survive in the end. The Jewish people did. And Hitler himself, Yamach Shemo, pointed out that maybe that's the way it's supposed to be. But he took one last shot on behalf of mankind and tried to destroy the Jewish people. But the point he was trying to make is that, and this is Amalek's point, it's the physical power in this world, it's the intermediaries. The more you control of that, the more successful you're going to be, the more powerful you're going to be, the more godly you're going to be. And the Jewish people stand at the other end of the spectrum, make the exact opposite point. So we get to this week's parsha, and the Seres Dibros, of course, is everything. And this is not everything, but it's like the basis of Torah. And Moshe goes up, and he's going to come down with the Torah itself in 40 days' time. Well, first the Egel Zahav and all that, eventually with the Torah on Yom Kippur. After he comes back with the Torah. But one of the most important points that indicates where the whole thing is going and how to measure the success of all that we're being brought to experience comes basically just before they receive the Torah itself. As Rashi points out, it mentions they camped in the desert there, and it says V'yichen neged ahar, right? V'yichen neged ahar, right? So as Rashi explains, that this is an allusion to the fact the Jewish people were able to get to the level of Kishecha b'lev echad, like a single person with a single heart. This is in contrast to the rest of the time in the Midbar. The rest of the time, they were not like a Kishecha b'lev echad, rather it's machlokas almost everywhere else they went. But here, at this most important moment in time, they got to the level of Kishecha b'lev echad. So that's important to know, and we discussed this before in the past, because, as the Ramban points out, loving your neighbors yourself is not a mitzvah to be chesedic, to be kind to others and to share, to give to others what you yourself want for yourself, because we find it doesn't always apply, halachically. And second of all, there are other mitzvahs to give tzedakah, right? Be left with the bracha, to walk in the Kodesh Baruch Hu's way, give tzedakah, meiser, there's lots of mitzvahs to make you do what love your neighbors yourself seems to make you have to do. So rather, says the Ramban, the mitzvah to love your neighbors yourself is a mitzvah to be objective. That's the essence of the mitzvah. So why is it tied to loving my neighbors myself? Because the Torah is telling you, how do you know when you're objective? When you can love your neighbors yourself. Because if I love myself more than you, I mean subjective. If I love you more than me, I mean subjective for you. But either way, I mean subjective. But the moment we're all equal together in everyone's eyes, that means we're objective. And the reason why it's so important by Harsina, because at least we know at the time the Torah was given, everybody was objective. They heard the Torah the way it was being given over. What happened after that depends upon the individual, but the Torah was received. It was objectively received by Klal Yisrael. That's one level of the message. But the other level of the message is a little bit deeper. And that is, how do you get to the point, what's really going on over here? We know that when the Jewish people say Nasa v'nishma, they go back to Adam before the Chet. Had they not sinned with the Egel Zahav, they would have lived on a level of Adam Arishon, they would have been immortal, the whole world would have been transformed over a short period of time back into Gan Eden again, evil would have been destroyed from creation, and the world would be perfected the way there's going to be in Yom Mashiach and Techis Mesim onward. That's the way it was holding. So what does that mean, basically? It means that the Jewish people got back to a level once again. That's what Kishecha b'lev echad is telling you. They got back to a level once again of such objectivity that happens only once a person sheds the physical reality. What makes me subjective, what makes me biased in favor of myself or somebody else for that matter, is my goof, my body. The shamans don't get jealous of one another. They don't hate. They don't have any negative, selfish emotions. The moment, and you see this, the moment there's a crisis, for example, right, and someone, God forbid, is lying in the street and they need emergency help, people don't go, I can't get involved. I got to go to the bank right now, and I don't feel so well. Everybody runs in. They're not close enough, right? They all converge and they all help out. And enemies become friends, and strangers become, friends. Because what happens? Because the crisis basically dissolves the physical reality, the body, and draws an neshama out. The same way there's somebody who sees a grenade about to blow up, there's like 20 people standing by, and he knows that that grenade blows up, 20 people die, he jumps on himself. To stifle the blast of the grenade, kills himself in the process, and saves 20 people. A body doesn't do that. The crisis basically neutralized the body and brought the soul out. So likewise, when they got to the level, the Torah is telling you that they're literally back on the level of Adam Rishon before the Chet, because that's the only way to connect the Torah on that level. Otherwise, you're going to be biased and distorted, and you see what happens. Everyone's taking the Torah and applying it in the way they want to apply it. They live by their own rules of reality. They think they're doing exactly what Kodesh Baruch Hu wants. In fact, I just saw a measure brought down in the Ali Shor from Rav Azar brings down there on the whole mitzvah of Talmud Torah. He's talking about that every time a group gets together, a chevra learns Torah together. He says if there's any machlokus in that group, if there's any fighting going on in that group, the measure says, Kodesh Baruch Hu says, I don't know what you're learning, but it's not my Torah. Because if you're learning my Torah, there's no way in the world you can fight amongst each other. There's no way there can be sina. You can't have a situation like Rabbi Kiva's students where they die because a sin is not possible. You're learning. You may be learning, the Torah, but you're not learning my Torah per se. They're likewise the same with the Meraglim. Anybody who's learning my Torah the way it's meant to be learned would gladly run and accept Eretz Yisrael. You're coming back to reject the land? I don't know whose Torah you're learning, but it's not mine. Because my Torah would have made you love the land and go in, not even question. So the most obvious thing to do. So obviously what happens when a person does that, they're biased, they're physical. They're working through the physical world.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, but let me show you the point.
People are chutzlars.
Yeah. No, but what's holding us back? That's why it's the most incredible, most pedantic thing that this country has a security problem, a major security problem. We are living in a lion's den surrounded by hundreds of million people for not just the last 5 years, not just the last 10 years, but at least 25, 30 years, 40 years, going back a long time, going back to the state was first formed, right? And yet, if you ask people the biggest ikuf, the biggest obstruction they have to making aliyah or even considering the possibility, it's not that, it's parnasa. The level of comfort they're going to live. That was amazing. Like, where's it coming from? Yet other people, right, as the Medrash points out, who will sacrifice that to be Neitzos Rebbe. Why? Because they need to connect to Kodesh Baruch Hu. It's a guf neshama thing. Mm-hmm. This is the land of the Tzotzi Kedusha. We spoke about it before. But the Torah is telling this is PARSHA, Kodesh Baruch Hu, the lead up to the search of the deepest, the lead up to Kabbalah Torah, is getting back to a level where the neshama is mashpia on the guf to such an extent the guf is neutralized. Because that's what happens over here. In order to be able to receive Torah on the level it's been given, the guf has to be neutralized. The moment the guf is not neutralized, you're filtering the word of God through your own personal experiences and your own personal desire and needs. And that distorts everything. I mean, just ask, after a shir, this one, another shir, just ask 15 people what they heard the person say in that shir, and you will hear 15 different shurim. Similar, but different shurim. Because each one's filtering through their guf. The neshama heard exactly the way it was given over, but the body, it filters. Because it's got things at stake. It's got biases. So the Torah is telling you at Har Sinai, they were able to achieve that. There's a lot more to fill in over here, but I just want to tie it all together, in one night, within 1 hour's worth of shir, right? It's Tu B'Shvat. Tu B'Shvat. Higia Chag Le'ilanot, 100%. The Pri Tzaddik brings down, first of all, we mentioned before, on Tu B'Shvat, that it's a Rosh Hashanah for Ilan, the Eitz Das Tov Ra. But he brings down, and by Yom Kippur, he's talking about the whole Indian about eating in advance of Yom Kippur, right? The day before, it's a mitzvah to eat, and it's counted as if you fasted. What's the connection? Why is it called, fasting? Who needs a thing like that in the first place? And he goes even one step further. Because anybody who fasts for 2 days in a row is really cheating over here. It's like a real chap, right? It's like the eating itself is counted as a fast. Oh, it's counted as a fast, so therefore it's like you fasted 2 days in a row. Anybody who fasts 2 days in a row is counted as if he fasted 26 days in a row, corresponding to Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's a Pelagic thing. See that I'm getting over here? Like the Gemara says, you can't bring two migus because one migu is already enough. It's like 2 migus over here. It's like two. If we actually fasted 2 days in a row, fine. But 1 day is called eating. 1 day's eating is called fasting. And now we use that pseudo fast day as a fast day to make it to 26 fast days in the end. That's the whole riches how it actually works out. But the main point he's making is that because what was the essence of the chet? What was the essence of the chet?
Which chet?
The chet, the Eitz Das Tov Ra. The first chet that man performed. What really did he do wrong over here? Was the tree of knowledge of good and evil going to be forbidden forever from Adam Rishon? Of course not. It sounds like it, but not really. Only until Shabbos. On Shabbos itself, the Koyach of Shabbos would have transformed the Eitz Hadas Tova Ra into the Eitz Chaim, and then it would have been a mitzvah to eat from the tree itself. So what was the problem? Because he ate prematurely, he ate Erev Shabbos instead, before it was permissible to eat, it's called a selfish eating, or in his terminology, achilu shalok b'kedusha, an unholy eating. It was an unholy eating. The moment you eat for any other reason but for the sake of bringing the tzotzi kedusha into your goof, from the to tie the neshama and goof together to make you spiritually stronger, is called an unholy eating. So therefore, Shabbos, of course, one of the holiest eatings of all. Right? We'll see next week in PARSHA Mishpatim how Shabbos is really the centerpiece of the entire PARSHA. The entire PARSHA is talking about Mishpatim. Don't be bad to Avadim. Don't damage people's property. How to pay if you do. All this. And Shabbos is mentioned in passing in that PARSHA. And a person can say, yeah, but what's it doing there? And why even talk about it? Because Shabbos is over there. Shabbos is over there. Why Dafki here talk about it in PARSHA Mishpatim? Because it turns out that Shabbos provides you the very key to avoid all the things that go wrong in the rest of the PARSHA. Shabbos is the essence of it. Why? Because Shabbos is all about Kedusha. Krish Baruch Hu says, I'm Kadosh, you have to be Kadosh too. Otherwise, what? We can't connect. We can't become one. And the whole point of Maisa Bereshis is for you to be connected to me. That's the ultimate, that's the relationship. That's what we're here to do. So he says, therefore, that the actual eating, Erev Yom Kippur, for making the point that you're fasting on Yom Kippur as a mitzvah, turns the eating itself into a holy eating as metakin the Eitz Hadas Tova Ra. It's a tikkun. The actual eating Erev Yom Kippur for the sake, and obviously on Shabbos too, for the right reasons, but here because you're making the point of showing how you're eating solely for the mitzvah. Shabbos we eat for the mitzvah too, but how much does the mitzvah come into your mind on Shabbos, right? Shabbos is a very, it's a very ruchon experience, but very gashmi too. But here on Erev Yom Kippur, because the fast is coming up, and the whole reason you're eating is because you want to make the point that fasting l'shem shamayim, it turns the eating to very holy eating and makes up for what went wrong by the Eitz Hadas Tova Ra. That's what he says over there. Because it's one thing to eat to survive. It's another thing to eat healthy. It's a whole other thing to eat holy. It's a whole different thing. Because obviously, the holier the eating is going to be, the more netzatze kedusha you're going to get access to. By definition. Because that's the way the world is created. Why should a person who eats healthy food but is a balavera, does that in respect for Kodesh Baruch Hu, for Torah, why should he have access to the same amount of sparks that a righteous person does? And the answer is he doesn't. He can't. It's not about nutrition, not about the physical food itself. It's about netzatze kedusha. And a person can say, yeah, but I know lots of people who are not such nice people, but they're totally healthy, no cancer. I know other people, who are eating, they eat pretty, healthy, but they're so righteous and they're sick instead, right? So how does the system work? It's not about physical health per se. It's about it sees from a person, what is the point of health? What is the point of life in the first place? This world's just passing through, right? It's lafum zarat, we're just passing through. As the Gemara says, Yesh mishakona olamo b'shas achas, Yesh mishakona olamo achri kama shanim. Right? There are people who can acquire their world to come in a single moment, and there are people who can acquire their world to come after many, many years. The Gemaras tell you it doesn't make a difference how long you live. It doesn't make a difference how healthy physically you are in this world. It helps. All that makes a difference, have you been koila olamecha? Did you acquire your world?
Why does a disproportionate amount of Siddiqim, of Scheinberg, of Kaduri, of Eliashiv, go on, that we know present day type of situation will go well over into the hundreds?
Yeah, doesn't it? That's an absolute. This is from the other point. The other way, it's not absolute in terms of how that a person will be guaranteed that long life. I'm saying even a person doesn't have a long life, they do die young. There's lots of tzaddikim who died young in the past. The point is being kol olamecha, right? Acquiring your world. So the Gemara says, in the world to come, everyone gets shy olamot. And the Gemara says 310 worlds. Every tzaddik gets 310 worlds as schar in the world to come. So of course the word shy is the reverse of the word yesh. In the parsha dealing with man, I don't think just cut short into the whole thing, but right? It mentions that at the end of the parsha, at the end of the section of the man, it mentioned, and the man was 1/10 of an omer, right? It was the actual omer itself. Actually, it was an ephah was 1/10 of an omer. Everyone got an omer, right? The man, everyone got one omer of man, whether you had a lot, whether you had a little. To make a difference, everybody had an omer. The vav is missing from the word omer. The gematria of omer without the vav is the word yesh, meaning you have what you have. What HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you, what's your lot in life, that's what you have. Every SHMOT means that everybody will get exactly what belongs to them, what's shaykh to them, what you yourself acquired that's relevant to you. And what do you acquire? Physical possession. We're all going to get cars over there, houses over there? No. Whatever you acquire in this world in terms of your connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's what you get in the world to come. That's the whole point of everything in this world. The Yesh we should call them Olamo b'Shachasa, Shaz right? The story of Taraji and the executioner, and the other Tzaddikim, right? A single moment can a person go in a blaze of glory to such a degree they can achieve a connection forever in the world to come in a single moment. Likewise, a person can spend a whole lifetime wasting their life and never accomplishing an entire lifetime, but something accomplishes in one single moment, let alone many moments at the end. That's the whole how it plays itself out. So that's what Tu B'Shvat comes to say. And it's a whole comparison with the fruit. The Medrash says that the fruit of Eretz Yisrael is compared to the man in the end. But the whole point of Tu B'Shvat, tied to this week's parsha, tied to the whole thing, is a larger picture. Read the connected dots. It's more musudar. It's more lit up there more clearly. But the point of Tu B'Shvat is to remind us basically that it's all about Atzotzi Kedusha. Atzotzi Kedusha, the holy sparks, which is the part of the man, the fruit, is what gives you the ability, the capacity to be able to connect to Kosh Baruch Hu, to become a complete individual, to earn your world, so to speak, what actually belongs to you. To metakanate this world because it turns everything to Achil Shekadusha, a holy. That's the goal, is to consume this world in a holy way. Whether we're talking about food, whether we're talking about furniture or clothing, it's all consumption. It's all Mitzvah Kedusha. But Klal Yisrael specifically, the goal of Klal Yisrael, the point of Torah, right? It's not physical health, it's spiritual health. The physical health helps. There's no question about it. It's all part of, you have to be physically healthy. It certainly helps the situation. But at the end of the game, it's about spiritual health. And spiritual health will be dependent completely on how many Nitzotzi Kiddush you get. Because the more holy sparks you get, the holier a person you become, the holier your vision of reality is going to become in the end. And that's what makes us able to connect to Kosh Baruch Hu and to achieve the type of completion that we're here to achieve.